Alright, Gene Sultan. I got this DX18 here. I don't know if that's the same radio you have. I'm assuming you probably don't have the exact same radio, but a lot of radios are going to operate the same way. So I just have this J3 Cub here that I have awesome flaps on, and LEDs, obviously, if you didn't already notice. I want to show you the answer to your question here. So what I did was I went into my dual rates in Expo. So your question was, you know, when I go in and set it up, there's two numbers. There's two numbers, one for low, one for high rates. Well, I can't necessarily speak to what you have in yours, but I can show you what I have. So in my case, I start from the main menu, I click, I go to DR and Expo, which stands for dual rates and Expo, okay? So dual rates and Expo are going to be tied to a designated switch. In my case, I've tied all of them. I have a throttle cut on, by the way. I've tied them all to the same switch because when I make changes, I want to be able to do it quick and on the spot, okay? So basically, in this case, there's just a small amount of change, okay? The dual rates, meaning the amount of deflection at full output, okay? When I bring this all the way down, see how it drops back? I'm holding the stick all the way over. Watch the aileron over my hand. See how it drops back just a hair? And the same would be true over here. See how it drops down? That's because I only have it set to go to like 90%. So I don't use dual rates that much. Sorry. So there's all the way up. So that's when it would drop the aileron, is when you would go to the 90. So the dual rate portion. It's like if I set this to 50, watch what happens. Okay, so I move the aileron over. Watch this. That's normal. That's with the low rates. That's normal. That's with the low rates. But then of course you also have Expo in here. So in my case, I want it to be 90. So I'm going to go ahead and set this value back to 90. So basically, when I run my Expo, the way I do it is I always set basically everything to one switch because I want to be able to quickly switch it. I take my maiden, I find out if I need to make any changes, and then I make my changes as I go, okay? But the idea is I usually start with like some low value, and then I double it for the middle switch, and then I double it again for the top switch. So you see, in that way, you start in the middle switch, you fly it. If it's adversely over controllable, then you fix it by flipping the switch one way or the other. If it's under controllable, then you flip it the other way, okay? So that way you kind of have, you know, a get out of jail free card, so you can get it back to the ground and make minor changes. Okay, so that's aileron, that's not a big one. Elevator, you can see on this one, there's two numbers. So it's the first one, and the second one stands for the amount of deflection up or down on the stick. So like for instance on this, if you watch, that's up and that's down. So now, why do I do two different numbers? Well, the two different numbers, and by the way, you access those by actually moving the stick to the position that you want to change it for. So like on the upswing, I want full elevator up. On the downswing, I only want 75% applied. Okay, so that's my middle setting. On my top setting, my lowest setting, there is no change from top to bottom. So like if I want to fly upside down, I might turn the Expo down. And on the top setting, I evidently have never changed the top setting because I've never run in the top setting. Okay, but you see this curve will tell you, so as you move your stick, you can see that little cross. Now you can do this contrary too. You can actually make it have and exacerbate the effect. So, but it just gets confusing if you do that, in my opinion. So Expo, that's 15% on the upswing and 40% on the downswing, which means that on the upswing, it's harder to explain the Expo, and that's why the chart is helpful, because the chart helps you to visualize the change, the output on the control surface compared to the stick position. So the idea is, people say it's soft in the middle. Well, that doesn't mean a lot to me, but really what's happening is if you put this all the way to the maximum output, Expo has very little impact. Dual rates do. But when you put this to 50%, then that's where you know, so wherever your stick happens to be, you're going to have less output, and it's going to be linear based on what you set these values to. So when I pull up on this plane, it's going to go up. When I push down on the plane, it's going to go down, but it's going to change about the same amount depending on which direction the stick is going. So I have a nice linear output for my elevator control. Now that's assuming I'm flying upright. When I'm flying upside down, which I don't do that much, then things get a little bit hokey. And the reason I do the two different values for my dual rates and Expo is just for the simple fact that gravity acts upon the plane when it's flying like this way. Now it does still obviously act on the plane when you're upside down, but the point is, since I don't do it that often, I don't care. I don't really need to worry about it. And if I want to go up flying upside down, I'll flip it to this so I have maximum throw up and down. Sorry, my timer went off, guys. So then on rudder, you got, now on rudder, you're typically going to want the same amount of output, whoops, same amount of output either direction. But it's possible that you have a linkage that maybe isn't quite perfectly straight or something weird like that. And so I run, you can see the Expo 15, 30, and then 50. But then I drop back my dual rates on the top setting. So the idea is, as I'm giving rudder, when I'm giving throttle, my throttle cuts on, by the way. So I'm giving throttle, it's easy. Since I fly like this, some people do pincer grip, I don't do pincer grip. I want a lot of room to be able to do that without having a ton of rudder movement. It's still going to move a little bit. But the thing is, it really doesn't truly kick in to full rate until you get, you know, about 30% out there. So anyway, that's my hopefully short answer that will help you figure it out. Here's what you have to do with dual rates and Expo. You have to play with it. I'd recommend setting all the values the same the first couple of times. Get the plane up, see how it performs, and then basically right in the middle when you first take off, set your one switch so you can quickly get to it without taking your hands off all the controls. See, on my DX8, I had 3 different switches I had to screw with. And, you know, it's nice that you can assign 3 different switches, but I don't want to waste 3 switches on this. I use switches. You know, I do different things with all sorts of these switches. So anyway, guys, I hope that helps you if you're trying to figure out how to use the dual rates and Expo, particularly on a DX18. There's a lot more. You could spend hours blabbing about this, but for now, this will at least get you in the ballpark. And the critical detail, you got to get your plane up, you got to fly it, you got to see how it responds. This plane might respond a little bit different than the same exact plane that you get next time. You may have to adjust these things when you get another one. So anyway, I mean, usually they're pretty close, but at least in the ballpark. But I'm picky about my Expo and dual rates. So anyway, hopefully that helps, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.